Welcome to the mind of Stony Face Entertainment. Hey Gus, let's discuss the Batman. Hey, Aram here. Great to see yet another discussion. Here we talk about movies and shows like they haven't released yet, and the studios want our opinions on them. So we're the test audience. So we'll start off with non-spoilery discussions, then we'll move on to spoiler talk. We have a light judging criteria that we go through, but it's just a tool to push the conversation along. So at the end of the day, we just want to know, do we like this movie or TV show? So we're rating it from by four metrics: very unlikely, unlikely, likely, and very likely. And make any suggestions if we think there should be changes to the movie. That's what our job is, right, as a test audience. So I'll start. So first category, story. Here we're looking for a story that is inventive, fresh, and masterfully woven. Dialogue is excellent. Characters are compelling and distinctive. If you're looking for the criteria, you can find a link to it in the description. But I'm gonna carry on over here. Okay, so as far as live stream Batman goes, this is the first mainstream one, at least that I remember, that focuses primarily on his detective skills. And it was nice to add the GCPD, the Gotham City Police Department element relationship to the dynamic, since we're focusing on the detective side of Batman. And having him pair with Gordon helps uh, to explain the 2 year entry we're getting in here, that they probably had their back and forth for a bit. Then they finally teamed up, at least the two of them. And the department is probably reluctant on that. So that was a great dynamic to see. And then it was nice to see a Batman who wasn't uh who was still trying to figure things out. Like, you know, the technique, but you still have to actually implement it, actually apply it. So in real time, not just theory or classroom discussion. So it's good to see this side of Batman kind of vulnerable. You rarely see that kind of vulnerability from Batman unless like they write him in a way that he has like excusable he has excuses for why he's that vulnerable, like very blatant excuses. Whereas this is like, he's just young. He's trying to make his way in the costume world. So it's nice to see him applying it in real time. And yeah. And but just like most of the stories in recent times, the villain has to be someone we can sympathize with and have humanity rather than just the carefree fun. It'd be nice. I understand the industry's trend to making villains more likable or relatable, so there's more weight to them. But there's something about like carefree, reckless villains too that seem to be ignored. And honestly, they're almost like completely gone. It would be nice to have some villains who are just bad because they want to be bad. They just want to have fun. Thankfully, though, the Batman mythos is respected in this movie. The director just aims to kind of ground it a bit. So for example, his utility belt won't have anything in it that would serve the story directly at all times, like no matter what. Oh, you need a baby bib? Here's a baby bib, the Batman utility belt, right? So that was great. So that also helped to lead grounding the mythos, helped to lead to themes that challenge some otherwise ignored components of Batman's uh, choices, like why he chose certain ways to why did he choose to be Batman rather than doing something else? You know what I mean? Like, it kind of challenges that idea rather than just ignoring it and just either pushing him further down the line of being Batman or just retiring at some point. So it's kind of like, do you understand the role you play in this cycle, in this criminal ecosystem, if you will. So so I like how fleshed out, and also this movie really fleshed out Bruce's parents. We're talking about humanizing the villains a bit ago. This helped to humanize his parents because usually his parents are either just a tool for him to be angry and become Batman, or as caricatures of moral or symbols of morality and what needs to be done. But in this story, it humanized them. It made them real people with real motivation, real issues, and this also goes to show also in our real world how rich people are also humans to a degree, and they also have their own concerns and things like that. So it was a nice that they fleshed out the parents, like they actually, and yeah, they fleshed out the parents. So the story overall was pretty good. The themes were interesting. I like the Batman vulnerability, respecting the mythos, but there was some decisions, but there were some decisions that were kind of like this character wouldn't do it, which I'll go into in the spoiler section where we can talk about it, Gus. So the ending was kind of the ending was okay. Like for this story, it was okay, but for us who are probably versed in the Batman mythos, since he's such a old character, that it didn't have a satisfying ending to me, in my opinion. So the ending was okay. Obviously, things could be worse, but it was okay. So let's move on to storyline integration or integrity. Here, we're looking for storylines resonating beautifully throughout the piece, thought provoking, masterfully interwoven in the story. So I'm looking at story arcs here. So they took advantage of the personal relationship between Gordon and Batman within the dynamic of Gordon and the uh, Gotham City Police Department, and it kind of it paid off in the arc because they were able to trust each other while understanding there were some corrupt police officers. So that story arc between, well, mainly focusing on Gordon, but his relationship with Batman and the corrupt police officers, that was done, that was saw throughout the movie, so that was good. The villain, although again humanized, mirroring the hero, whatever, how they made him go about committing his crimes was pretty nice too, because it added to what we so it added to the themes of the story. So that was a great execution there. Although touching on the mythos elements that I mentioned earlier, I think they missed on a few decisions that a character with their background wouldn't have made that mistake. So I'll go into that more in spoilers. Uh, and yeah, so it's nice to see vulnerable Batman and the family dynamics they play in this. Like just the relational dynamics were interesting in this movie. Directing. So here we're looking for stories told in a unified, unique, and cohesive, clear, distinctive style and tone. Relational dynamics are believable. So his goal, from what I remember, uh, his from a report I saw, was to touch on Batman's detective side. He accomplished that and incorporated societal topical themes to it. So he was successful since that was his stated goal. So he did uh, respect Batman's mythos by following what we know for the most part and adapting it with some realism to make it feel more grounded. But because he was so focused on the detective part, it's kind of he missed some elements of what makes Batman Batman, or and his supporting cast. So it's kind of like you focus on one and you neglect the other. You can tell in this story. Okay, so we'll continue that and and the spoiler discussion as well. And ultimately, his take, although not fresh in terms of storytelling in general, in terms of mainstream live action Batman movies, it was a relatively fresh take or a break, at least from what we're used to of Batman. Uh, but because again he missed some elements of the Batman mythos, and even it's not even just Batman mythos. Sometimes it's just character motivation. So even just taking the mythos out of it, it kind of took away from the experience. Again, like the ending, but overall, he did a pretty good job making this movie. So the cinematography for this movie, I love that they use detective genre frame ratio for this movie. So again, really heavy on the detective genre element of this influence. So that was done. The shots were beautiful. You could see things because sometimes things are always filmed in the dark, so you don't see things. So it was nice to see the fighting, the action clearly, and yeah, beautiful shots. And the editor also did a great job. The Yeah, okay, so the editor did a great job. Everything flowed smoothly. Uh, the production costume designs were solid. The music was memorable. I can even hear it playing in my head right now, specifically like one or two of the songs. And it kind of had this like cowboy detective vibe to it, which was pretty solid. The sound design, we're looking for consistent levels, beautiful transitions between words and music, absence of distracting noises like buzzing and humming and hissing. But they did a really good job. Like the costume sounds of Batman walking around and stuff like that it was like identifiable and sweet. Uh, and again, it kind of gave off some cowboy detective vibes. And the acting was pretty good overall. There was one problem I had with the acting, but that was more so that's probably because of the writing. But overall, everyone was pretty solid in this movie. So if I were to if someone asked me would I recommend this to someone, I'm likely to recommend it. From very unlikely, unlikely, likely, and very likely, I'm likely to recommend it. So if you are looking forward to this movie, let me know what you're hoping to see in the comment section, but be careful, there may be spoilers. Uh, so let me know what you think of this movie, or watch it and then come back and watch the spoiler section if you haven't seen it before. So yeah.
Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. The following segments contain spoilers. The opinions expressed are that of the commenter. Please feel free to have your own opinions and share and discuss them in the comment section.
Okay, Gus, spoilery talk. So keep in mind that the points and the judging criteria, they don't really matter. I don't really care about points that much, although I do have a specific score for this one, which is rare. I usually don't have a specific score. But yeah, so I don't really care about scores or criteria like that. It's like whose line is it anyways, or most of the things that stress us in life, they just don't matter, right? It's just this is just a tool for us to keep the conversation going. So let's start with story. So for story, uh to recap you on the non-spoilery part, if you didn't see that. So I talk about how they focus on Batman's detective skills in this movie, how he has a relationship with Gordon early on, which was nice because you don't really, I guess you do see a relationship with him and Gordon, but it's nice to see it early on, and the dynamic came throughout the movie. It was like going back to the detective element, having a buddy cop kind of situation. Uh, Actually, this might be the most like informed Gordon is with Batman. Usually he waits until he has to tell Gordon something, but this one's kind of like, hey, I figured something out. I'm gonna let Gordon know. So that's interesting, but also could be a sign of his youth Batman's youth in this. And of course, they have to make Riddler sympathetic and mirror everything the hero does. So both of them being in the orphanage and having different resources and where they ended up, which did add well to the theme of the movie and the message of the movie. So I'll give them that. I also talk about how they did a good job respecting the Batman mythos with giving us the characters as we're used to them. So that was good, especially for mainstream depiction. I like how like they gave us the mythos, but it wasn't just fan service. Like it, it was a good element of the movie. I like how fleshed out his parents were. So I like how they used the capitalistic take and they didn't make them all out to be villains. Like, oh, you thought they were good? Psych, they missed it. You know what I mean, or something. They didn't. They made the parents like actually they humanized them like they did Riddler. So it was kind of a nice touch. They weren't all the way off like money grabbing greedy people. They did want something. They did want power, but they didn't want it at to a moral extent, like through killing. So that was a nice flesh out of the parents, made them real humanized, and also the dad doing it to protect the mom's mental illness being publicized and probably criticized as well, which was also probably low key for his political campaign. It was nice element there, and the ending. So I'm gonna touch on this some more, but just for this story part, the ending was okay. Like for the movie, it was okay. That's all I have to say for that. So for story, I'm gonna give this 16. Okay, so let's talk about storyline integration and integrity. So so again, connecting it back to the story section, because they showed they had a close relationship, Gordon and Batman throughout the movie, it the arc is complete and shown like it's important by how they're able to leverage their relationship to get distance from the rest of the officers so Gordon could allow Batman to escape. So that was a good insight from the writers and the director to have that payoff that like okay, they trust each other and they're willing to stick their necks out for each other like Gordon did for Batman, and even think of it before Batman thought of it to escape. So it's good they show that Gordon also has some say in their partnership. It's not just Batman. He's not just Batman's lapdog. Okay, and when it comes to his skills and being vulnerable and learning in real time, it was good. It was great that they showed that he has the intuition, like he's quick thinking on his feet, but just doing it, he still needs practicing. Like when he escaped from the police, and he tried to go on the glide onto the bus, and he ended up falling and hitting the bridge. That was funny to see Batman fail like that, but also realistic, and it wasn't too like like making him look weak. It was like this guy's just learning, and he's basically already there. It's just a little bit more, and he's there. So that was great for his like skill storyline. And then even though the film's big bad didn't just do bad for fun, uh, even though he probably had fun doing it, I like how they used his riddles not just like oh riddle me this and solve it and whatever and go to the next riddle. The riddles unmasked the corruption in the city, and that was dope because like while Batman's trying to unmask him in a sense, try to figure out who he is, he's unmasking the criminals, the ones leeching off the city. So that was a dope like in a dope fusion of his gimmick with story narrative and themes. It was a nice melding of that. So it's kind of like he's like trail mix, you know what I mean? Like he's leading, he wants Batman to find him, but he's just leading him to uncover corruption in the city, the big corruption levels, before he allows Bruce to find him. So that was Good. So it's kind of like I was saying with the mirror, it's like a full circle, right? All right. So I mentioned in the non-spoiler section there was a character who made a decision that didn't make sense for the character, even if you remove the Batman mythos, just like the motivation and background of the character, and that's Alfred. Like Alfred is a British intelligence agent, and he's watching over a billionaire or whatever Bruce Wayne has. So why would he just open a mail that such a suspicious package? Like that doesn't make any sense. He would be suspicious of it again with his training and his years in it to try to figure out what it was before opening it. But I guess it helps push the story along because with Alfred out, Batman it takes Batman longer to find out about his parents' backstories and kind of open his eyes towards that they weren't as perfect as every kid tends to think, or most kids tend to think their parents are when they're growing up, that they're perfect adults. So, so the most favorite part of the vulnerability aspect of Batman was him failing to realize Riddler's final plan of the blowing up the bridge. Like it was nice to see Batman not actually be able to solve everything and call it a day. Like he actually messed up. Like he actually was too slow. It was nice to see that part of it, and he saw the redemption at the end, saving the people and everything, so it balanced. But it was nice to see like he's not omnipotent or anything like that. He's just a detective. So having the mob, having Falcone being Selena's father was a nice tie-in for the story arc, since like in the comics her parents are non-factors, so for the most part. So you might as well make it interesting, right? And it worked for the story. And if you think about it from the comics, her dad was alcoholic who beat up her mom, and that was almost a similar dynamic with Falcone and her real mom. Anyways, I mean theirs was further it was worse, but so it was almost even still keeping true with the comics, making it even more interesting, improving on it. So, and his fighting was just okay. I know I was talking about vulnerability and everything, but his fighting was okay, mid level for me. I liked like how realistic they looked, like a real fight. But I was hoping for a slightly faster pace. You don't have to be as fast as the warehouse scene, but it would have been nice to have a faster pace. And it was nice to have that Riddler website Easter egg giver public. So those things all factor in with the ending of the ending working for this story, I guess. I'm gonna give storyline 8.5. Okay, so director. So he had the goal of showing Batman's detective side, and he accomplished that while discussing some current social themes. So it was pretty. So he achieved his goal. I'll give him that. And like I said, along with the Alfred decision making, one another he kind of neglected, probably indirectly or for sake of time, other elements of the Batman mythos and general storytelling because of this focus on the spotlighting Batman's detective abilities, which cost his execution in other elements of Batman's mythos. So, namely, here's the first one that annoyed me the most: rushing his Batman's relationship with Catwoman. Even with normal people, like it was so forced. You just met this woman and you're supposedly angry and your vengeance and everything, and now you're acting like a teenage boy who just got a crush on someone and is jealous of even the thought of them with someone else. Like when he went to the funeral, the mayor's funeral, like that was it was way too rushed. It should have been like maybe to me. Actually, I'll leave that part for the refix suggestions, but it was way too quick to me. Because you could even see the jealousy when Selena was looking for the intel in the iceberg. Like It was way too soon for someone, especially Batman, who's usually at least at the start cold-hearted and focused on his mission to a stubborn point, to just easily fall just like that with a stranger. He just basically stalked. Like our first knowledge of him knowing her is stalking her in her apartment. Okay. And at least like usually he misuses what or misconceives what love is and uses it for his campaign, like I'm doing this out of love or something, but it's not. And even as a young cat in the game, we all know Batman's first aim is to strike fear in the hearts of criminals. And he never accomplished this beyond street level criminals from the opening scene. He never comes off as someone who frightens anybody or anyone's afraid to challenge. They all feel like they could take him, like they could easily trick him. Look how he had to, and like how he knocked on the club doors. Like Batman usually sneaks in, maybe with a disguise or just busts in or something like that, knocking on the door, waiting, and then walking in. Like that's not Batman. At that point, it's just like this is just a detective movie with Batman elements in it. At this point, it's like a substitute teacher going back the next day to the class that disrespected them in a Batman costume. You still have this, the Batman costume doesn't make that teacher a better teacher. They're at the same teaching level. They're just wearing a costume and people think they're weird. Like, why are you wearing a costume? So this is more of like a detective movie with Batman elements. And that's a sign of it that either there's a misunderstanding or something like something he wouldn't come in like that, especially that often, and they would be prepared for him. They wouldn't just keep repeating the same thing. Okay, so that sums up the execution for me, the teacher substitute teacher example. Uh, if you took away the Batman elements, this would be a great modern detective genre movie, like a nice throwback to a modernized throwback to that genre. But this is a Batman movie. So at the end of the movie, Batman renounces his vengeance identity, which confused me because I couldn't tell he was about vengeance throughout the movie. At best, you faintly see it when it comes to trying to avenge his parents' death, but even when it comes to the citizens of Gotham, he's not really avenging them. He's more defending or protecting them from, especially specifically from the Riddler in this situation, not even necessarily from corruption. But let's just say corruption is also a part of it. He denounces his vengeance identity in exchange for hope, which this series is probably going to be a trilogy. So to me, this is a bit early. Like maybe his heart should still be cooling off, but not fully there yet. He was if you think about it, he was kind of hope the whole time, hoping the bad guy would willingly give him info or not terrorize people. Uh, he wasn't really angry or spiteful or any edgy in any kind of way like we're used to. Uh, maybe at most, again, it was maybe like like a frustrated uh frustration from Alfred trying to convince him to socialize or something like that, like a kid like being like you're not my real dad kind of situation there. So nothing really, the anger only came out with Alfred or socializing. And that's another part that Matt Reeves missed in this movie, the socializing aspect, because the socializing side of Bruce Wayne is almost equally as important as the Batman Crusade part of Bruce Wayne, because it even helps his Batman operation because it gives him an alibi, so people won't suspect him as much easily. Um, it'll give a reason, yeah, so people won't believe he's Batman so easily. And it can also help him to get into some rich societies or some groups to get special intel he might not otherwise have access to. So the socializing part of Batman is also important, and throughout Bruce is important because throughout the movie, or especially when he went to the funeral, like they were kept people kept saying how they haven't seen him since he came back to town or since his parents died. So that is a glaring miss on their part. And then yeah, so I feel like those kind of affected the his ability to land the ending to make it more satisfying. But for even with the misses, it was still a enjoyable experience. But those were glaring misses. So for direction, for the director, I'm going to give him a 7.5 out of 10. So cinematography. So I loved the detective genre, like uh frame ratio they use with a little black on the top and bottom, little black bars there. It's dope. It added to the vibe and the feel of the movie. There was beautiful shots throughout. Again, you could actually clearly see the fighting and the action with everything else as well, even when it was dark. So that's greatly appreciated because in cinematography, we're looking for visually stunning, camera movement and shot selection is excellent. So I'm giving this a 10 out of 10. So the editor, they did a good job arranging, putting everything together. Nothing seemed out of order. I'm just gonna give editing a 10. Production, I liked the costumes, uh, the scenes, especially like the end scene where uh, the church or the wherever Batman and Catwoman meet, especially at the end when they're going their separate ways. Beautiful scenery, production set. They get a 10 as well. The music, those that one or two songs, we all know it. It plays in your head when you think of this movie. It was especially the amount they played it. It was really fitting for this movie. So I'm gonna give that a 10 out of 10. Like kind of like a gothic kind of vibe to it. Gothic cowboy detective genre apparently at this point. Okay, sound design. You could hear the leather movements, which was good. Because sometimes they don't always do that, especially with superhero movies. You don't hear the leather, so it's good that you could hear that like he's clearly wearing leather, and the boots, the leather of the boots, and the his footsteps was perfectly captured. It was nice. You knew he was coming. It kind of added to some scenes, like the first scene when he was walking in, it flowed well with the main song. They kept repeating between scenes, which was pretty solid. And like I was saying earlier, it gives like a cowboy, gothic, western, like a cowboy boots with spurs kind of vibe. So I'm gonna give this sound design, which is constantly levels, beautiful transitions between words and music, absence of distracting noise like a buzz, hum, and hiss. I'm gonna give that a 10. All right, so acting. I'm giving this one a 9 because everyone acted good, but the Joker, I wasn't. We're gonna jury's out on that one. The Riddler, he kind of gave me vibes of like Joker or another character. Maybe he gave you a vibe of another character too. So let me know in the comments. But I don't know if I mean, there's only so many ways you can write a personality, right? So you can kind of give it. So it could also be writing, not just the acting. But I'm just gonna let it take a dig here. Dig here. So uh, I enjoyed the mayors, the doctors, the police officers, the citizens, and the background actors. The stereotypical accents helped make the movie more interesting. Uh, Gordon saying Jesus like every other word was again standard detective buddy cop uh writing there, so that was interesting. Like if you do a drinking game with that, I don't know if you'll make it to the end, but yeah, so I'm giving that one a 9. Okay, so that brings the total score to 91 out of 100 points. With and like I said earlier, I usually don't have a real score, but for this one, I feel like my real score, which kind of gets faded because I'm more focused on story than anything else. But you can see from this judging criteria, there's more of a balance between all the departments of the filmmaking, so it kind of helps elevate the story and the score. But my final score would be 83 out of 100 because it was good, but it could have been better. And it was better than average at least, like at the minimum. That's why it was in the 70s. So that's why I kind of felt the 83 because there was some parts like the Alfred judgment, the rushing, the romantic elements, the Batman claiming to be vengeance even though we don't really see him exhibiting vengeance or being angry or fearful or socializing. So some of the mythos and general character work kind of took away from it. But I'm still likely to suggest this. So I want to know. So for the refix and shoots, I would probably okay. Here's what I would do. I would have Bruce still like known to socialize. You don't have to show him socializing, known to socialize more often, so it wouldn't be like a part of um, his identity that people would mention constantly that he doesn't socialize. To let Catwoman be focused on trying to avenge her friend, the stubbornness there, and also dealing with her dad Falcone, and Batman focus and angrily trying to figure out the his parents' situation, and who killed his parents, as well as which was also nice that they didn't directly answer that, as well as the Riddler situation, and keep the whole like flooding part there. Uh, yeah, so Alfred wouldn't open the bomb. Alfred wouldn't open the package. Mm, shoot, I had more for here, but it seems to have escaped me for suggestions to improve it beyond what I just said. Oh yeah, so and let him be more fearful and more like aggressive, like with his entrances, like when he was going to the iceberg, or like the above surface one when he was going to talk to Penguin, so people actually be afraid of him, not just like surprised he can keep up with them in a car chase. Although keeping Penguin in the cuffs under the bridge, that was funny. I know that's a tangent, but I just remember that. Uh, the car was dope. I wouldn't have Batman renounce the vengeance and go for hope just yet. Maybe for the next movie, but for this movie, maybe he starts to become more warm-hearted because now he gets closer to what happened to his parents. So that burden is kind of off him. That's kind of been on him for all this while. So he starts to become allow his emotions more, which would help in the second movie for him getting closer with Catwoman and make sense and not be forced. Like that kiss was so forced. I'd pick up the pace on the fighting a little bit because it is a comic book movie. But if you still want to be realistic, just a little bit, just make it a little bit faster. But yeah, yeah. But yeah. So those are the fixes I can remember at the moment. But we can keep it going in the comment section and see what you all think about it. But yeah, this was an interesting Batman story, and yeah. So let me know what your rating is, why your rating is that, your reshoot suggestions, and you'll see me again soon. Take care. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch y'all later. Peace and out.